Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 2021 virtual meeting. It's great to see a bunch of names. I was scrolling through the list, and welcome everyone. If you're a new member, I especially want to welcome you to the meeting, and I hope you find this meeting and the rest of the organization, as you would expect, to be a warm and friendly environment for you to explore the sky, extend your hobby. Whatever you want to get out of this club is, I believe, exactly what you put into it. You can be as involved or as you want, and that's the beauty of this club. So let's get going. And why doesn't that work? Every month I have that problem. So here is a list of the board members. I know Valtz is on. I know Trina's on. Matt sent me a message saying that he most likely would not be on. I saw Conrad was on, but I have not seen Gunnar, but I could have missed him. But so there's the faces. I suppose I should go in there and put little captions for everybody. I want to extend a thank you to all the volunteers, anybody that's volunteered anywhere at any of the sites. It's not just the list that I have here. These are just things that I thought of off the top of my head when I was preparing this slide. The light fence at CGO has been completed. As you can see there. Yes, Steve, I scooped those off your post from the forum. And then the other piece is thank you to all the volunteers that show up for star parties and make those things run smoothly, in particular the ELO parties, and everything else. Steve, you have any comments about the fence?
The fence looks fabulous, by the way. First time I've seen it.
Thanks. We had a lot of people work on that thing. It was 2 weeks ago, I think. We dug the holes, and then a couple of days later did the fence. The good thing is we had a really good turnout. Thanks to Mark doing a little bit of prodding some people, I think, to the hard part, which was filling in the post holes, mounting the posts and the stringers and everything. And we got all of the posts installed and all of the stringers installed. And what do we have? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 there. We had 14 total sections worth, and we got 7 of those installed that first work party. So thank you to everybody. It was Mark and Dave and Larry Kane and Mike Kutsky, Doug Neverman, Robert Miller, probably some others I've forgotten. But anyway, we had a really good group of people working that day. And then a little bit after that, the Picket Brigade, we had Dave Schaff, Larry Kane, Vic, and I were able to knock it out. Dave and Larry did a great job on just continuing with the pickets. We just, that allowed us, Vic and I, to work on hanging the stringers around that porta potty surround, hard to say. And then Vic and I were able to get the porta potty surround finished up a day or two ago this week. So I think the place looks pretty cool right now, actually. So that's about all I got to say about it.
Thanks, Steve. No, it looks really good. From the pictures, it even looks straight.
I have a question on the small one, the right-hand side. Is that just some extra, or did you plan that?
No, we planned that one. You know how we have the temporary light mitigation tarp situation that we have on the south end, south of the observatory, but everybody kind of complains about doing the tarps and everything, and then we end up not putting them up. But we decided let's have at least that part of it have a permanent light fence, because you're not going to typically drive that close to the observatory, and it doesn't cut off the observing field for anything, for any necessary access or anything like that. And it does improve the darkness on that part. So with the fences there, and with the tarp that we hang on the roll-off roof rails, all of that covers probably a good 70% of the field then from the light coming down on Dodge A. So that was the whole idea behind those two chunks of it.
Yeah, nice. Anything we can do to prevent that light from that traffic.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, all you volunteers. You guys did well. Let's see. Just a reminder for everyone to let you know that the listserv is officially off our logs, and and I noticed this month I did not receive an email, so that means it is definitely gone. Where it reminds you of your login, I think is what it was. So that was good. I'm happy to see that go. That's one less issue we have to worry about keeping ourselves secure from those hacksters.
Okay, so this is Dave. So just so I'm clear about this, then the forums is our main communication device to the membership at large, and then there's also, of course, if the board wants to send out a message, they have the MailChimp.
So what we did is we merged the listserv general list into the MailChimp list. So every board announcement will get to the entire sum of both lists.
Sure. Okay, but outside of the forums, there's no way for us commoners to communicate to everybody within the organization.
That is true, and that's really we have chosen to do that as a privacy issue.
Okay.
And we've offered now the Slack tool, which Mark is showing right now, as an alternative to that, and the forum. So there are plenty of opportunities to communicate with the group.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify that. That's all. Okay, thanks.
Yes, Dave. That's exactly what we intended. And even if there was a site, Cherry Grove, ELO, whoever, that wanted to send out a blast to everybody that's on that list, which includes members and non-members, that all you have to do is contact the board, and we can get that taken care of for you. It's not that we mean to control communication; it's that we mean to protect privacy of our members.
Yeah. So I've got a question for Vaults. You mentioned that you merged in everything from all of the old list servers. Did you prune out long past, long gone members? Because as far as I know, that listserv hadn't been edited in years.
We did not, but the listserv in its own nature kind of self edits itself. If no one responds or no one does anything, it prunes itself. And by merging it to the MailChimp, if there's no response, the MailChimp tool will kind of obsolete any abandoned or no longer used email addresses.
Okay, that helps a little bit. Although,
and plus the MailChimp has an opt-out option for every message. So if people don't want to receive that, they can opt out of that.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
All right, moving on to Slack. I looked at the stats here the other day. There's still less than 100 people that are on there, so I encourage you. To join that. There's an email address here, slack@mnastro.org, to where you can send an email and receive your intention to be. It's not really invited. It's that your intention is, hey, I want to be part of this group. And I've been using it since we used it for the Messier Marathon a couple of years ago, which I thought was just a blast, or I guess it was just a year ago. I kind of use it as my main tool, and actually the board uses it as their main tool to communicate between board meetings. We actually do quite a bit of business that way, and you could do the same thing. You can create your own little pod, I believe, and communicate within each other. The Astrophotography channel, I believe, is pretty active. You know, and there's even a channel just for you know, I used to use it as a nonsense channel, but I kind of quit. But it's a random channel. I mean, you can post anything there. You know, and then conversations start. It's really kind of cool. It's interesting to see how that works. The news feed channel that we have, that actually, I mean, it's almost overloading. I mean, an overload because I never look at it. I can't look at it every day because there's too many things in there that I find interesting, and you know, I go wandering down a rabbit hole. So I just have to be careful.
Don't subscribe to the newsfeed channel unless you're familiar with how to shut off notifications.
Absolutely, I agree. It'll drive you
One
nuts.
more, Mark. One more note about that. When you send an email to slack@mnastro.org, we verify that you're an MAS member. So if you want to join Slack, as long as you're a member, we'll invite you after you send an email to Slack at mnastro.org. But if you aren't a member yet, you're not on the list, so we can't verify that you are an MAS member. So.
Right, we are making this just a members only. I don't know. It's a benefit, I guess. It's a benefit of the membership. To be
And the reason for
communicate
this,
internally.
our nonprofit license is there is a cap on it, so we have to be careful about how it is, because if it goes over a certain, if we open up to the general public, it can go crazy and it can get very expensive. So we're providing it as a members tool for communication, and it's been really great.
Absolutely. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty awesome. Especially the part about the free video and audio text chat. Clayton and I actually had a video call on Slack, which he and I had never tried before. And you know what? It worked great. It worked, you know, just like we were sitting across the table from each other. You know, so that worked pretty cool. That was great. You know, I mean, if you're able to join this meeting, you're able to use that video feature like that. So it was pretty cool. All right. Something's broken again. There we go. Also, the MAS is on YouTube. You know, so if you miss a meeting, give us a few days, and we'll have this video will be posted up there on the YouTube channel in a very specific feature section. I forget what that's called, but it'll be featured on their monthly meetings. Same with any other presentations. I know there's the special interest group for the beginners is there, and so is the imaging group. So there are a few videos up there. So I invite you to join.
Huh?
And you don't need to know that really long
I can't hear you.
HTTP address or anything. So all you have to do is search for Minnesota Astronomical Society on YouTube.
Which leg? Who's rolling?
Dave Faulkner, your mic is open.
Thank you.
Conrad, I know we got a nice email from Kevin Nasel, and I'd like to have you talk about that.
Yeah, well, Kevin sent an email, I think last week, and thanked us for all our hard work. You know, I think it turned out to be like, I don't know, 90% of the items were sold, so there's not a whole lot left, but he just was thanking us for all our help on getting this stuff, and I'm sure that it made Joe Timmerman's wife being happy that it went so smooth. It started out a little rocky, but once we got a system going, it worked well. So thanks for everybody for your patience, and there were a few glitches at first, but for the most part, it went well. So
thank you, Conrad.
yeah,
I think most of the stuff has even been picked up. I know I got my stuff, and I know a few others got their stuff. So it's pretty cool. Worked out well.
Yeah, I can't find my Batnoff mask. I have that 11-inch bat. I took out. I cannot find it. You think I'd be able to find the dang thing? I don't know what happened to it. It's around here somewhere, my mess.
Anton, are you on?
I am here.
All right, Anton. Yeah,
Yep,
loader scope program.
Yep, we do have our loader scope program. Members, as always, can request to borrow a telescope from our website under members, loader scope program. We have 15 telescopes. Right now, 10 of them are out. That's pretty typical, 8 to 10. They're usually out at a particular time, so there's always a few available. And, you know, they come back in over every few weeks. So if you'd like to make a request, please do so on the website. And also remember that we have our DVD short course collection. We have 14 of the short courses now, and ranging from cosmology, introduction to astronomy, astrophysics, planetary science, all kinds of things. So if you're interested in just learning about more astronomy or borrowing a telescope, just visit our website and make a request.
And I have to agree that that is an awesome program, because 10 or 11 years ago when I joined the club, I think I checked out 2 or 3, and I think the arsenal then was probably only like 5 or 6 scopes. So it's growing. It's really incredible. It's a great program. Okay, things that are going to happen before our next meeting. I guess this weekend, Mercury greatest western elongation. That will be kind of cool to see. And then what I didn't realize is, you know, I did, you know, it's just weird that, you know, here we are, we're going to be farthest from the sun on planet Earth here in a few days. But it's, I think on Monday, isn't it going to be like in the 90s or something? So it's just a clear indication as to just our tilt of our axis as to what that can do. And then, as we all know, we are approaching New Moon weekend. That's always exciting. It's actually going to be nice the next couple of days. So the only other item on there is the meteor shower. I went and looked. You know, not only is the moon gonna not help there, but just the fact that it gets light so early in the day. It's, you know, and that's when they are most prominent is right. I mean, they talk about pre-dawn being the best time to see that, while pre-dawn now is like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30. You know, and by the 27th it'll be a little later, but not that much later. It's so I think they're going to be hard to see. They're not very bright anyway, and there's not that many. But I suppose if you could see them, if you were in a good place, good dark place. So, and then our monthly meeting again on August 5th. Star parties happening. ELO's got a couple there. Public star parties, July 17th and the 31st. And as always, I'm sure members that, you know, I don't necessarily think you have to be a key holder, but if you were a member and you showed up with your telescope, that certainly would be welcomed out there at ELO. And then there's the beginners star party at Metcalf Field on the 24th. But if it looks like it's gonna be cloudy on the 24th, they'll try to squeeze it in on the 23rd. And then it is that I believe is a rain or shine. It's not a rain or shine, it's a shine event. So if it's not a moonshiny night, then it's not going to happen. So, and then there's 4 star parties that are happening for members only, LLCC and CGO on those weekends. July 2nd.
And I just want to remind everybody that for the LLCC ones, if you could sign up online so we know how many rooms we need, etc. That helps out a lot.
Oh yeah, that's right, because we need to know who's going up there and whether or not you're staying overnight, so that there could be a room available for you. That's a really a great deal. And then Merle, if you're on, you want to talk about Camping with the Stars at ELO in August.
Oh yeah, Camping with the Stars. We're working towards that. I guess we got all the stuff pretty well lined up. We got all the prizes. Lila's working on the speakers and the presentations. So yeah, we're hoping to get almost back to normal. We are making a few still COVID modifications, but it's looking a lot closer to normal than it did last year. So information's on the website. And if you're looking to register, again, that information's on the website too, but that's contacting Baylor Park to make the camping reservation.
And you could also, you don't have to camp, Merle. You can go out there with day passes. Is that not correct?
Yes. If you just want to come out for either Friday night or Saturday, I guess our procedure is come up to the observatory and we'll get you signed in. It's a, this is our paid event for the year. So there's a fee associated with attending, but that fee gets you into our door prize drawing, which we've got binoculars and telescopes to give away for the door prize. So.
All right, excellent. So, and Merle, I presume you're going to be posting that you need help too.
Absolutely. Yep, the more the merrier. We'll probably post for help the week before, as typical.
And then I'm sure you're going to need help for cleanup also.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Watch the forums. The ELO discussion forum is the place to see that, because I am sure that if you were not a key holder, your help would still be welcome to help clean up out there also. So, and then Ken, we got the big party coming up there at LLCC. That should be some fun, I guess.
Yeah, so registration is open now for the Northern Night Star Fest, September 1 through 6. We are looking for people that want to give lectures or demos or anything during the day. If they could contact me, let me know if you're interested in doing that. That'd be appreciated. There'll be various selections for types of rooms that are available. You can either do 3 or more people, you can do 2 people in a room, or you can do a room all by yourself. The cost varies. There'll be food available, kind of a brunch and a dinner each day. Door prizes, stuff like that. So go sign up, reserve your spot.
We have Bob King as our featured speaker on Saturday night.
How's the internet up there, Ken?
Internet is good. They got a new fiber internet just before COVID. It's a little weak on the field, but in the rooms and everything like that, and in the lecture hall and everything, there's plenty of internet there.
Because why I ask, because 3/4 of the board might be up there for the for LLCC for the Northern Nights, and we may have to operate the monthly meeting from on location from LLCC. That actually would be kind of fun, I think.
That would be super, super cool.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun. We'll have to see if we can do that. That's
All right.
because it's I believe the first is Thursday, or is that Wednesday?
That's Wednesday. Yep.
Yeah. So the September 2nd is going to be the meeting. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll still operate that virtually, but the president may be on location at LLCC.
So we can kind of do a live meeting up there. Yeah.
Yeah. With whoever's up there, and then, we'll see how that goes. It'll take a little thinking, but we'll get through that. that would be a first. We've had a lot of firsts in the last 18 months, so there's no reason not to continue to have firsts.
We always do a swap meet too. So if you have anything you want to swap or sell, bring it up.
Yeah, good thing I got the pickup. So about COVID, I'm still gonna stick by this. Help us, help yourself, get your vaccination. I mean, if you don't have it, it sure would go a long way in making everybody feel comfortable. We're kind of sticking to the ELO, I think, is the main restrictions that we have on yet, and that's only during public star parties. And we're still requiring masks. I did see a little chatter on the forum, and I was going to respond, but I don't have anything to say either way on that. I mean, I get it. There's people that don't want to wear masks. I understand. I'm thinking about my family members, and I don't even want them to get a cold. So, and if I can wear a mask so I don't get a cold, so I don't take them a cold, then that's kind of where I am. It's not just COVID. I mean, there are family members that I have that if they got sick, even with a cold, I'm worried that would be it. So I'm leaving it at that. Once I hear that we really don't have to worry, then we'll take this all down and we'll go back to normal. But so far, we're going to stay with this the way it is for now. Beginner special interest group. As I said before, July 24th. Shresh, if you're on, you want to put something into this, please jump in. I had a thought when I prepared this slide that we haven't been talking about the fact that there's no power at Metcalf Field. So if you have a telescope and you need power, some of those go-to units that you need power to operate the go-to, then I think you need to be aware of that. You need to drag yourself along a 12-volt supply so that you can have power. So
but come on down. It's always great fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people were at the last one, or was that one canceled, Waltz, or was that
No, we had like 40, 50 people there easily.
Yeah, so it's awesome. I mean, if it wasn't, I think the last one, wasn't that Friday night?
No, Saturday.
Oh, Saturday, yeah. Well, that's right. I think it was the same Saturday we were at CGO, so I was a little tired that day. So, but if it's Friday night, then I definitely can't make it, but that would be kind of fun. I may show up once. So, yeah, get out there. You beginners, give it a spin. You can bring your gear if you don't know how to use it, and somebody will help you. And even if you don't have gear, there'll be plenty of gear there to look at to go, okay, well, I really like that, or I really don't like that. Things like that. It's not necessarily you get to try, it's that you get to kind of window shop. And I think that's really what the beginners group is all about. So get out there and try it. Conrad, have you talked or thought about a training session at CGO on the imaging rig? Conrad, if you're speaking, your microphone is muted.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about one in July. I'm going to be on the West Coast for 2 weeks on New Moon, but the weekend of, let's see here, the weekend of July 16th, 17th, I was thinking about having a session if anybody is interested in training on the Takahashi or the plane wave down at CGO.
Yeah, so you could contact the Conrad through the board or make a post on the CGO imaging forum. There's ways of getting hold of people to let us know that you're interested in receiving some training on the rig.
I'll throw a post out there, Mark.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Put it onto the CGO discussion forum rather than the imaging rig forum.
Okay, will do. Yep.
All right, very good. Public service announcement. This is where Steve Emmerich takes the floor.
I can do that, I think. Yeah, basically, I wanted to pass on to everybody that, as you probably know, everybody in the MAS is also a member of the Astronomical League, just by default, because we submit everyone as that. We'd been working on the procedures with Mitch Glaze, who's the Astro League rosters coordinator, and found out some things that I had wrong in the database application, that we weren't getting notifications for the electronic publication of the reflector. And it turns out in the roster that I send 4 times a year to the AL, there's a column there that you can get the printed reflector, or you can get the electronic notification for the PDF download of the electronic reflector. So basically, we just decided we're going to mark everybody for both the printed and the electronic version, unless you specifically come to me and say you don't want one or the other. Steve Schmidt, who is the guy that takes care of the database, and I kind of talked about it, and we didn't really see the huge need to modify it to modify all our member application forms and renewal forms and everything else that goes with it, to say, hey, I want this, or I want that, or I want both. We'll just by default give it to everybody unless you come specifically to me. And I do thank Steve for modifying it, so I can, if somebody does come to me, I can update the member database to be able to do that. But so that's kind of about it. We hadn't been getting it before because we didn't have emails sent to the AL for the roster, so nobody was getting email notifications except the board. And but anyway, that's been fixed as of the roster that I just sent to those guys today. And that's about all I want to say on that one, aside from, again, thanking Steve Schmidt for doing all the work on updating that database application, as well as all of the other maintenance work that he's done on it, because I can't code SQL to save my life, and he can do a fabulous job on it. And that's about it. I'll turn it back over. Am I gone?
Mark, you're muted.
Yeah. We give Conrad a bad time, and then I find myself muted. Oh. Other technical difficulties. And then the other public service announcement is for the Astrophotography Workshop, August 7th. Doug, do you know how many spots we have left for that? Last I looked, there was 10 or so.
Yeah, that's about right. It's filling up slowly, so if you really want to get there, come to it and get signed up.
Yeah,
we'll send out an email blast this week, and just to get it back onto everybody's radar.
And just let everybody know that dinner is, if you attended the 2018 ELCON, the caterer for that is the same caterer that we're using for the Astrophotography Workshop, just in case you want to just come eat barbecue and, just hang out and maybe pick up some astrophotography things. As everybody knows, Mike Shaw is a great presenter, and that'll be a treat. And $20 extra for the dinner. We're doing it actually at one of the picnic shelters there at the park. We have that reserved also, so that's all taken care of. Any questions from anybody, you could certainly get a hold of us. I guess I don't have the email address on there. Doug, you want to recite that email address, because I always forget something in there.
You forget the S. Well, we'll email it.
Yeah, you can put it in the. Why don't you put it in the chat? That way it'll be. Yeah. That way everybody can see it there.
All right.
And then there's always the call for Gemini articles. Looks like the last Gemini was quite full and quite enjoyable, and that's attributed to the volunteers that submit their articles. And Father Brown and his crew, they get those things published. It's great. And I haven't heard anything from Father Brown, but if he's on, I certainly would open the floor to him so he can let us know whether or not he needs anything. But anything, any kind of experience.
This is Father Brown.
Hi, Father Brown.
It looks like I will have enough for August, both on hand and promised. But beyond that, the cupboard is still pretty much bare. So I again ask all MAS members to submit articles about whatever you're interested in as to astronomy, and if they don't get in the next issue, I keep them on hand and pretty much publish them in the order in which they were received, except if we need a large article or a small article to fill an issue. Then I might have to leave someone off this issue and put them in the next issue. But if you send me an article, I will edit it, and we'll put it in Gemini as soon as we find room for it. So thank you very much to all who have submitted articles. And I would say the vast majority of MAS members, though, have never submitted articles. I pretty much rely on the same 30 or 40. So if you haven't submitted one, write something that you are interested in relating to astronomy and send it to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Father Brown. Yeah, you can put me in there as one of the guilty. I've never submitted an article, but I do have a stockpile of ideas. I just need to find some time. Maybe if it was cloudy for like a month. Oh. Jerry Jones, are you on? And if anybody else is interested in doing this presentation, better know a constellation, certainly get a hold of me. Jerry Jones is going to present Lyra this month.
I am on. Greetings, everyone.
All right, Jerry, let me stop sharing so that you can take over. All right, Jerry, the floor is yours.
Or at least the screen is mine anyway.
Well, same thing, isn't it?
Perhaps. Okay.
Oh, that works very well. Good job, Jerry.
Can you see that okay?
Yes, it's great.
Fantastic. All right, well, good evening, everyone. So I decided to take a slightly different direction in this Better Know Constellation and begin to revisit some of the ones that many of us already know. And so the one I'm going to revisit, and especially for those of us who maybe haven't looked at it for a while, I'm going to revisit the smallest constellation of Lyra, which is a small constellation in the Northern Hemisphere. It's actually the 52nd largest out of 88. How about that? That's kind of crazy. It is visible right now in the eastern sky, and about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's pretty close to the zenith, so it's fairly easy to find. In the Western mythology, let me make a couple of changes here. It is known as the Lyra, which is a musical instrument. Hold on a second. I have to get rid of that. How do I do that? How do I get rid of that? I'm not sure I can.
Undone.
There we go. Okay, it just was over my screen, over my buttons. So here you can see the outline. This is the kind of the standard Western European mythology. It's considered the Harp of Orpheus that was originally made by Hermes, who was one of the 12 Olympian gods. And this was the harp that Orpheus used in charming the god of the underworld, Hades, to allow his beloved mate Eurydice to leave the underworld. And as you all know the story, Hades required him to play and sing and not look back as he was walking out of the underworld. And Orpheus almost made it, but in the end he chickened out, looked behind, and lost Eurydice, and then he suffered the rest of his life. So that's kind of the Western European, Greek, Roman mentality. But there are obviously other cultures. So I'm going to turn this off and just let you take a look at the stars itself. By the way, these lines here are the International Astronomical European Union's line. So anything within these lines is considered part of the constellation Lyra. So to the Arabian culture, it was known as the vulture. And in fact, this star was also translated Vega, or Wega was translated vulture. In the Jewish tradition, it was King Arthur's harp. In the Welsh tradition, it was King Arthur's harp. In the Jewish tradition, it was King David's harp. For the Aboriginals, it was a mallee fowl, a type of bird. And maybe if I do this, there, can you see a bird in that? Maybe somebody did, certainly. And the Incas, it was the llama god, the god that protected the herds, and that god was Uracachile. So obviously, it's pretty cool to think about the fact that we always see these things as a particular thing, but people from different cultures look up at the night sky and they turn them into all sorts of various different things, which is kind of cool. I'm going to turn the traditional lines back on. It is a fairly for the size of constellation, it's got a lot of stuff going. Robert Burnham was said to have said about it, for its size, it's one of the most remarkable constellations, full of beautiful fields and adorned by one of the great leaders of the firmament. What a great way of saying that. So what's in it? What's visible? Obviously, the most important thing is the brightest star in the constellation, which is Vega. It's the fifth brightest star in the sky that shines at 0.03 mag. It's 25 light years away from us, and it's 2.2 solar masses. So it's a fairly massive star for it being on the main sequence. Due to precession, Vega was the pole star at 12,000 BC. And all you got to do is hang around until 14,500 AD, and it'll be the pole star again. How cool is that? So that's kind of neat. It is part of the Summer Triangle, along with Altair and Deneb, and it is a AO class. It's a main sequence star. So there are a few things to look at, and that's kind of my angle here. Is, well, what do we look at in this constellation? What can we see with our naked eye? What can we see for a pair of binoculars? What can we see through either a small telescope, maybe even a larger telescope? Kind of in the hopes, obviously, since I'm a bit of an observing fan, encouraging you guys to look up at a constellation and say, oh, that's right, that idiot was talking about that. I wonder if I can find that and where that might happen to be. So there are lots of double stars in this. In fact, Burnham lists in his handbook, he lists 82 different double stars within this area. So there are lots of them. I'm not going to go through 82 of them. Oh my word. I'm going to go through a couple of them. First of all, Beta, which is down here, also known as Sheliak, is a fairly good sized double. It is. When I was looking for it at it last, I really couldn't quite see it, but it's supposedly kind of cream and blue. But what I did notice, there's really a nice asterism. Now this is only Sky Safari 6. This is not the Pro version, so I can't get as many stars as I would like to in there. But there's some really fun asterisms and some fun things to look at. Another one, which is really pretty cool, and this is actually potentially a naked eye double, and this is Delta Lyra here, right here, and here are the two. This is an optical double. This is not a gravitational double. There's this one, and there's this one, and there are some really cool asterisms, a lot of star patterns around it, and in fact, this is the home of one of the few deep sky objects, Stephenson 1, and it's assumed that both Delta 1 and 2 are part of Stephenson. But so it's a fairly faint, irregular open cluster. I'll talk just a little bit more about that later. The next one is Zeta. Let's see, what happened to Zeta? Where did Zeta go? I'm going to come up here. I'm going to move this out of my way. And because I've forgotten where Zeta is. Zeta. Oh, that's right. That's where it is. So this is a really cool, this is a binocular, possibly a binocular, for sure, a very nice telescopic one. And it's a lovely green, kind of a topaz and a green. And so on good seeing nights, you're gonna see a little bit of color there. Another one I'm gonna scoot at, which is very, very, very lovely, is Struve 525, which is right here. So great to be able to zoom into these, like, you know, kind of like having a zoom eyepiece. And this is really a lovely double. It's very Embryo-like. It's orangish and bluish white. So this one is really a great one to look at if you like to look at double stars. And of course, how could we forget the perhaps most important double star in the sky is in the same area. And this, of course, is the double-double. And this, for those of you that have really good eyesight, you might be able to split this double. So even when I pull out, you can tell it's elongated. It's not exactly stellar, but as you, if you use any kind of pair of binoculars, even those wacky 2.5 by 44 Galilean binoculars, you'll be able to split it. And what's cool, especially for those who don't know this is how to amaze your friends and family. Have them look at this, then just pull up the power, and all of a sudden, if you have enough either enough resolution in your telescope, a high enough f or large enough resolution, large enough aperture, these two are going to wind up resolving into two different pairs. So and this is actually a good test for the quality of the seeing, especially for a small telescope. If you've got a small, like a 4-inch, and if you can split this, that's a good sign for your telescope and for your seeing. So that is one of my favorite double stars. So along with double stars, there's a bunch of other stuff. There are two great carbon stars. One is T Lyra. Let me see if I can find that. There it is. This one is super red. Of course, a carbon star isn't a supergiant. A carbon star is a star that in this process of evolution has begun to deposit carbon into its outer atmosphere. And so the light going through a carbon star goes through that layer of carbon, and it's like the embers of a fire. It's red. And so this one, T Lyra, oh my word, you put an eyepiece on it, and there is no mistaking this puppy. It is definitely there. The next one, which is near it, I think it's this one right here. Yeah, I got it. HK Lyra, which is another carbon star, not quite as red as T Lyra, but it's a kind of a carbon star, and I've done the carbon star list, and some of the carbon stars are red sometimes, and sometimes they don't look red at all. And so much has to do with your seeing, with your sky, with your eyes, yada yada yada. Oftentimes, it's good to look at carbon stars not fully dark adapted, because obviously you want to have your cones operating a little bit to get the color. But some of them hardly look red at all. But these two babies, oh my word, you look at it and you go, yep, I found it. There it is. There's a carbon star. So, whoops. So along with that, there are some variable stars, but a famous variable star, is RR Lyra, which is way over here. So RR Lyra is a variable star that has a history. It was discovered by good old Wilhelmina Fleming back when she was part of the Harvard computers. And it was another prototype of the standard candle. So an RR Lyra is considered a standard candle for distance. And it's used especially within the Milky Way because they're not as bright as Cepheid variables and certainly not as bright as supernovae, type 1 supernovae. But it's pretty cool. There's a bit of history sitting right there. And it has, if I'm not mistaken, it's got a fairly short periodicity. I think it's either this one or maybe it's XY. That's another one of the variables in Lyra. It has a 13-hour periodicity, so it's possible to even be able to see a fair amount of it as you go through the course of one night. So there are a few double star or a few deep sky objects, as I mentioned. Stephenson 1, which is over here. For those of you who have done the Trumpler, I've done the Open Cluster project. We can't get the stars here because it just don't have enough stars in this program. But it's a Roman numeral 4-3P, and that gives you an idea. It's very diffuse. It's rather faint. It's pretty open. It's sometimes even hard to see that it's there. It's only 800 light years away, so it's fairly nearby. It's one of the closer nearbys, but it's a cool open cluster. There aren't a whole lot of things going on in this constellation with deep sky objects. There are a bunch of galaxies, although they are fainter than 11 mag. Kepler and Sander in their night sky book suggest that there are about 11. And so, but they're pretty dim, and they're certainly not on in this program at all. But which brings us to the real two highlights of this constellation, and they're the two Messiers. And so, to have two Messiers in as small of a constellation is pretty cool. We'll start with the second less well known, which is M56, which is a globular cluster. And we even have a picture of it as we zoom into it. And it's a Shapely Sawyer class 10, which means it doesn't have a very large core. I think it's kind of overexposed on this photograph that Sky Safari is using. But it is very diffuse out to the periphery. But it's clearly a globular cluster, but it's not going to look quite like M13. But it is a very cool cool globular cluster in itself. And of course, summer is the time for globular clusters. So if you want to go look at globular clusters, man, this is really about the only time. You can't find them in the winter. You got to find them in the summer. And last but not least, the one that we all love. And if you have never looked at this, you really need to. You can see it with just about any pair of binoculars. Certainly small telescope really shows it up, and the larger the telescope, the better. And then of course we're talking about M57, the Ring Nebula, which is a planetary nebula, which means it's the outer layers of a star that's been puffed off during the course of its evolution. Some planetary nebulae, you can see the central star, some you can't. In this particular one, the central star is about 12 to 15 mags, so it's difficult to see. You've got to have really good skies and a fairly good sized telescope to see it. It's fairly easy to image, but it's a difficult one to find. It is a beautiful thing to look at, as you see that it's kind of an elongated torus, and we're kind of looking right down the barrel of the sphere. So here, obviously, the outside of the sphere is thicker, so hence the reason why there's more material in the kind of the center. As we're looking down through the pole of the sphere, there isn't as much, and hence that's why it looks like a ring. It does emanate both in the red of hydrogen as well as in the green of oxygen 3. The outside has some red, and you'll see this in photographs, color photographs. The outside has some red, and most of the rest of it glows in the green oxygen 3. So in summary, this is a cool, fairly well known, but really great constellation to revisit. You can easily spend even if you're in a hurry, you can easily spend a couple of hours looking at this, just all the different things to see in the constellation of Lyra. My primary resource, and this would be a good book, especially for those of you who who want to just have a quick reference of what's out there, what can I see. The reference is called Objects in the Heavens by Peter Buren, and it's a simple book. It's not very large, smaller than the Sky and Telescope atlas that we're all familiar with, but it really does give you an idea of what's in a particular constellation to look at. What can I look at? And the descriptions are good. It shows where everything is. So I encourage you to go out and take a look at Lyra in the next weeks or months, especially we're coming up with this new moon. And as Mark reminds me of saying, get out there and observe. Now I will hand it back to you, Mark. How do I do this?
Hey, Jerry, this is Dave Faulkner.
Hi, Dave.
How you doing? Hey, listen, great presentation. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
A couple of fun facts. One is that Vega is considered a reference star for the visual magnitude system because it's right at magnitude 0, very close to it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, and the other is that the RR Lyrae is one of the stars that I highlight in my latest book, now available for pre-order on Amazon, entitled "The Stories of Astronomers and Their Stars."
Nice. Great, thanks for that, Dave.
Sure.
Have I stopped sharing?
Nope.
No.
Now I stopped sharing.
There you go.
Gotcha. Okay. It's back to you.
Yep, I was talking to myself again.
Nice job, buddy. Nice job.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for that. Terrific as normal. I don't think you should wander too far away though from your microphone. Just a reminder, the Astro League LCon 2021 is online this year and it's virtual. They postponed it to the face-to-face one until 2022, but that doesn't mean you can't attend the virtual version. You do have to be registered though. And then the next one is, hey, Jerry, are there any awards?
So I don't have any awards to give this month, at least not that I'm aware of. So come on, you slackers.
So what do you have to say then?
I have to say, so I'll say two things. First of all, I will encourage you, for those of you who have never spent time looking at globular clusters, really encourage you, spend some time and look at them. Even a small telescope will show you quite a number of them. A larger telescope will do even more, but they're fascinating. And you kind of look at it and you go, well, they all look like balls, but that's not entirely true. Yes, they're all balls. That's why they're called globular clusters, but they are all very different. And there are 12 different classes, so it's fun to compare them and to sketch them and to just get a good look at them. And now is the time. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't get dark until after 11:30. But now is the time of year to look at globular clusters. So if you have been curious about them, now is the time to get out and observe them.
I knew you'd get it in there, get out and observe.
Of course.
So the next monthly meeting, August 5th, we're featuring one of our own, Russ Durkee. And what's really going to be cool is I believe he is going to be at the Shed of Science physically in Texas. And he's going to talk about I can't even say it. I wish he was on.
Astrometry and photometry.
Yeah, there you go. And what that is, I can't wait to hear it. He did post on the forums, just in case anybody's trying to keep up with him and catch up with him. He did have a podcast with the Planetary Society that was posted, and he posted the link in the forums. I listened to it. I thought it was great, his part. So, you can check him out before he gets to check us out. And I can't imagine what he's gonna pull off down there at the Shed of Science. So we'll see. This month, though, our feature presentation is us, the MAS astrophotographers. We're busy whenever it's dark and clear. So some of us aren't even slowed down by the moon. So that is, we're always trying to collect data. So Ahmed, do you want to take over for just a little bit, just to introduce everything and maybe provide some background?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. But before I start talking about this, I just want to say quickly here, if anybody has any speakers or connections to any speakers they'd like to recommend for this meeting, feel free to email me. My email is on the website or on the forum. You can text me or through Slack, and some of you have my cell phone number. Go ahead, notify me. I'll reach out to them and coordinate them coming over to our meetings. And I'm always looking for recommendations. So if you do that, thank you so much. And so shifting gears to this one here for astrophotography, this would be effectively our second year in a row where we're doing this. We did it last year. It was fun. It was a blast. And we're doing it a second time where we show off some of, the amazing pictures that the members have taken over the past year. I am not an astrophotographer myself, but I've generated an appreciation over time to enjoying looking at these images, not just the beauty of it, but also the technology and the development and the effort that went into. Some people went as far as developing special fixturing for the lens and the camera and so on. And hopefully they'll talk through that. And other people, the software and the processing that they do to give us those amazing pictures. Now, I got a lot of pictures, which was great. I tried to limit maximum, 3 to 4 people per 3 to 4 images per person, but if not all you, and I picked Mark and I, we picked the top 3 to 4 images for each person. So if not all your images made it to the presentation for today, given the limited time, they're still in the main presentation that will go out in the forum, and hopefully the rest of the club members get to go out there and see them and enjoy them. And with that said, I would say let's start with the first one.
Oh, I didn't realize we had that. So that's an ESA picture. That's pretty cool. So here's Conrad's. What is this? The sombrero. What is that? M104. So Conrad, if you're on, you can talk us through this.
Yeah, I took this one over to park near my house, and it was a challenge because I've never done anything without my Hyperstar. So I decided this year to start not using my Hyperstar, which I never thought I would say that, but I got some special spacers and my focal reducer, and decided to image from the back of my telescope with the same telescope that what am I trying to say? But it's my SCT, and I use the camera at the back of the telescope instead. And of course, the exposures were longer, and it took me longer to do it. Like 80 minutes versus like maybe 10, 15 minutes with a Hyperstar. So I was pretty happy with it, and it was really low in the sky. It was just over my shoulder, so I had to be really careful when I was imaging it. So I was pretty happy with it, and I'm kind of excited to do more galaxies like this, the galaxy season, where I can get a bigger image.
What did the binning 2x2 do for you?
Well, Mark had recommended that to me. He said that, Mark, maybe you want to explain what the binning does. Mark, you're on mute.
Yeah, I am a mute. I've been a mute all night tonight.
Mark's recommendation.
Yeah, so binning 2x2, what I have learned, especially ZWO has changed their software. And by using 2x2 binning with a ZWO camera, and you're using their driver, it makes your camera more sensitive, and then you're applying more pixels to the cause. And the other good part about that is, these objects are already dim. It just lets you collect more light, and especially with a color camera, you're already down to a 4x4 anyway, because of the two greens, the red and the blue. I've been trying it. I've been meaning to also do an experiment to do the same object the same night, with the same sky, do 1x1 and then 2x2, just to really put that whole thing to bed, to see if everything that I just said is really true, or if it's just a bunch of hogwash, which is highly likely. So that's why I suggested to Conrad to try the 2x2 binning. I've been doing it, and it seems to work.
So for people who don't understand what bin 2x2 is, it is using 4 pixels instead of 1, and it combines it into one data point on the image. So it shrinks down the image size, but it's more sensitive. It's 4 times more sensitive.
Okay.
Good, Paul.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, Conrad, don't wander too far away. As you can see, the next one is yours too. What is the problem here? So the next one is your Andromeda Galaxy from last fall.
That was with the Hyperstar, and it just barely fit in there. So yeah, I did that from my backyard in Egan, so I was pretty happy with that. And I used, there's a light pollution filter, which I used in my backyard. And yeah, Andromeda was always difficult for me. I never could get a good Andromeda. And this one finally, I was finally happy with. The only thing is the core is a little bit blown out. I tried to reduce that a little with PixInsight, but overall I was pretty happy with it.
All right, next up is your Veil.
Yep, that's the Veil. That's the Western Veil. Again, done with the Hyperstar. My stars don't look the best. I just noticed when it's zoomed up, but
well, here, we'll change it then. Now they look better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. You can see part of the I believe that's part of the
broom.
Yeah, but I mean, the witch's broom, but the bottom part, isn't that part of, that's not part of the Eastern, is it? That's just, I don't believe it is.
No, it's
in the middle. It's in the middle.
It's in the middle, but they have a name for that. I forget what it is. But was it Pickerlings or something like that?
Yeah, Pickerlings triangle.
That's right. Yeah.
Pickerings.
It just came to me. So, yep. I always liked the Veil, and I used I have the L Pro on there. I think that's wrong. It should be the L Enhanced filter. I would use the L Enhanced filter on the Nebulas. So I got that wrong there. But
were you using SharpCap with these, doing the stacking?
Nope. You can see up where it says APT imaging software. Doug Neverman got me started on APT, and I swore I'd never go to that because I love live stacking, and I still do live stacking with SharpCap. But I just decided I wanted to start comparing to see the differences between SharpCap and APT. And you know what? They're about the same. They come about, they're very close to each other, but it's just what I feel like doing. I love using both of them. But I kind of want to get familiar with APT and feel pretty comfortable with it now. And
Conrad, are these all processed in PixInsight?
Some are Star Tools and some are PixInsight. Star Tools is an amazing product. It's developed by a guy down in Australia, and I really like PixInsight, but there's just sometimes when I'm in a really big hurry, Star Tools does a wonderful job. I don't know exactly what I didn't write down what I used for the processing, but it's usually 75% PixInsight, 25% Star Tools. It's a cheap program, but it's complicated. But it does a lot of things on its own. It does a lot of assumptions, which internally it's complicated, but for the user itself it's pretty easy. But there's a lot of things going on, and it does support GCPU, which is really nice, built into it. So I have a desktop that has quite a bit of power, and it's got the GCPU in it, and it really screams with that. So I know PixInsight you can do it too, but you have to modify. There's a modification to make it work.
How did you determine your exposure length?
That's a good question. Back then, I was kind of guessing because I was still learning this stuff, but I think my sweet spot for my camera right now is the unity gain is 110. And the way I figured that out is that SharpCap has a wonderful utility built into it to go and look at the sky and determine what the best gain should be for your, to set for your program. So I've been using that more. And it goes out to your camera. You put a cap on it, and it goes through its cycles like it's doing darks. And then when you're actually out doing it, you point your camera at the sky, and it determines what your gain should be. And for me, it's usually a 110 works now. I think my 200 is a little bit too high for this camera. So that's kind of what I'm using, about 110 right now for everything.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then we have your moon picture, Conrad.
I just had to try out my 174 monochrome, Mark. I mean, I got this for solar, and I've been doing some solar imaging with it, but I thought, you know what, this is a good monochrome camera. And so I think this is probably a full moon. It was very close, or the full moon, but yeah, that's Tycho there. And I got my CPC 1100 on it, and that's the 11-incher, which I just got last year. Is a very good deal on a used piece of equipment from a guy in Farmington. And I kind of want to use my CPC 1100 for planet killers, Saturn, Jupiter, and the moon. And I used Auto Stacker, and then I used a new product which I just started using. It's called Topaz AI and Topaz Denoise, and it really does a good job. I was really amazed by it. So there's a lot of frames there. It took about 20 minutes to process. I probably took too many frames, but pretty happy with it.
All right, very good. Thank you, Conrad.
Yep.
Next up is Craig. Very nice.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is a wide field of M42, M43, and the Horsehead Nebula and the Flame Nebula all in one shot. This is done with a ASCAR 200mm Astro lens connected to my 294 MC Pro, which is normally connected to my telescope. So this was actually my first really wide field image. 1 minute exposure is 180 shots total, and then everything's processed in PixInsight basically. So I was very happy with this, showing all 4 of these nebula.
Very nice. Where's Eagle Lake? Are you from Eagle Lake?
No, that's your observatory.
That's
Eagle Lake, Minnesota, the observatory. Okay. Eagle Lake, Minnesota. Okay.
No.
Okay, I thought that was a town that I hadn't heard of before. So
Oh, there probably is an Eagle Lake somewhere in Minnesota, but
Yeah, okay. That's very nice.
Hey, Craig, talk about Nina a little bit.
So it's a newer, basically session manager, like APT, Maxim DL, these kinds of things. I started with Sequence Generator Pro, had a lot of problems with it on my computer, would crash a lot, didn't get me to do exactly what I want. And so Nina, which is basically a European, most of the people, it's an open source session manager. And so it's constantly being updated. I mean, you can get updates practically every day on this free application. And I started using it. I like it. I still don't use all the features in it, but it certainly seems to be more stable for me than Sequence Generator Pro, which is what I started with.
Excellent. You and I need to have a private lesson, because I'd like to know a little bit more about that. That'd be cool. Any other questions as we move along? Oh yeah, Craig, I previewed this. I kind of like this.
Okay, so there's two of these, if you include the second one.
Right.
Last year, I had imaged Pluto with my 100 millimeter refractor and my camera. And when I was reading about Pluto, obviously that got downgraded as a dwarf planet. And I realized that there were 4 other dwarf planets, of which 2 of them are visible in the springtime because they're in Boötes and Coma Berenices. So I planned for a long time over the winter for a spring imaging of Haumea and Makemake, which are 2 of the 5 dwarf planets, also trans-Neptunian objects, which are basically farther out than Pluto and fainter than Pluto. And the way I did this is I took images 1 week apart, processed them in PixInsight, and then basically laid them on top of each other, essentially to do a blink comparator, which is what Clyde Tombaugh did to discover Pluto using photographic plates about 90 years ago. Now, I had the advantage of, I knew where these planets or these dwarf planets were, at least approximately, because you can look them up in the planetarium program. So I did both of these, Makemake and Haumea, on the same nights. Each one was 4-minute images, 15 of them stacked on top of each other using PixInsight, and then went back 1 week later and basically pointed my telescope to the exact same spot, took the same images, processed them independently, aligned them, so the stars were aligned in PixInsight, and then looked, say, are there any stars that are moving? And if the answer is they're moving, well, then they must not be a star. And I confirmed this by using a lot of sort of online information, including the JPL horizons, which is basically can tell you exactly where these planets are, and confirm that this is Haumea and this is Makemake. These are about 17th magnitude. Each planet is about 1,500 kilometers in diameter and about 50 astronomical units from Earth for about 4 billion years. So, it's not a nice picture to look at, but it's always mind-blowing to say, basically you're seeing the photons from the sunlight that traveled 4 billion miles, bounced off these planets, dwarf planets, and it came back to my 4-inch telescope and were collected on my sensors.
Absolutely amazing. Good job. I love it. I love stuff like that. That's pretty cool. Okay, what else we got? Oh, this is Thor.
Oh, gee, now I get to explain this.
Yeah, explain that. I want to know all about the rock.
So this is one of the famous sailing stones. It's in Death Valley. And this is an area called Racetrack Playa, which is a dried lake bed. It's a million miles from anywhere. Actually, it takes quite a while to get there. But it was something I'd read about, many years ago, and how these stones would have these trails behind them, and geologists didn't understand how they could be moving across this dry lake bed. So one of the, I guess I was just intrigued by the idea of it. In the years since, the geologists have figured this out, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. But on this day, it was in May, a month or so ago, we traveled down this 30-mile terrible dirt road that many people end up getting flat tires on. And we found our way onto this place, and it was just a very, very interesting, intriguing landscape. And my goal was to try to make a time lapse. And so I set up two cameras, one facing north and one facing south, and this is the south facing one. And it was taking a picture every 10 seconds, which I later combined into a time-lapse movie. But this is a frame from around, it was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. There had been moon, the moon had actually set around midnight, which is about the time that the Milky Way was rising. And so the moon set and the Milky Way came up and eventually reached this very nice position above the Sailing Stones trail. And so I selected this frame from the sequence and submitted it. And here it is. It's just this beautiful composition of the night sky as we saw it in this very remote place in Death Valley.
Hey, Thor.
Yeah.
You need to submit this to APOD. They'd love this. The astronomy picture of the day.
Yeah. Well, I don't really consider myself to be in that league, but
oh, you absolutely are. With
this is it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is awesome.
I have to confess, this is a it's technically called a blend of 2 frames. The frame of the Milky Way was at around 2 or 3 in the morning, and the frame of the playa and the rock was a little, well, it was before the moon set, and so there's a composite that's going on here.
Absolutely, and there's no problem with that. If they accept it, it'll, which it's possible they could for sure.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh well, that's high compliments indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice.
Just to let everybody know, there when these are posted on the forum as a PDF, the Thor's time lapse will be available. You should be able to click on that. That should be a hot link. I'll make sure it is, and then that way you can see his time lapse available. So
don't miss the time lapse. It is outstanding.
So what's the explanation of the racetrack?
All right. So for many years it was sort of a baffle to geologists. Well, what's going on here? And they had many theories about it. You know, some people thought, well, high winds in the winter, and slick ice or something. But there was a team of people that went out there and they made their own, they placed their own rocks out there that had GPS transponders in it. And they set up time-lapse cameras to sort of watch things. And they would wait, because these things, they're there for years, and then suddenly, when they go to look at them again, they're in different places with different trails behind them. And so they instrumented a couple rocks, and they set up weather stations and cameras, and eventually monitored. They found that in 1 year, I think it was like 2014 or so, that there was enough rain and snow that happened in the winter of that year, that the south end of the lake got a very shallow layer of water. And the shallow layer of water froze and trapping these stones in it. And so it was not that moment, but later in the season when it got warmer and now the ice is melting. And you know how lakes break up when the, it melts and the wind blows and all the ice kind of shifts over to the shore. Well, what was happening was that the rocks trapped in the ice would be blown with the ice across this lake bed, and it would drag its feet, sort of behind it, leaving this trail behind it. And, where it landed was where the ice stopped being blown, and the ice then melted, the water then evaporated, and now you're left with a stone, a trail behind it, and no evidence. So, yeah. So, anyway, I mean, these stones have become, I mean, they're very intriguing, and unfortunately, people have come to this place seeking magic, and they find these stones to have magic in them, and so they will actually take these stones away. And we found a number of the trails that had no stones at their final, endpoint, because people had taken them away. We consider that bad karma, but so this picture is from the sequence of pictures I took from my north-facing camera, and I carefully selected the frames between the end of astronomical twilight at night and the beginning of astronomical twilight in the morning. And so that's what's making that's like about 6 hours that night. Again, the foreground is from a shot when the moon was up, but that was during this time. It was actually, I don't think I did anything special. It was just a Photoshop blend of in lighten mode, and the lightest frame for the foreground was sort of at the beginning when the moon was up, and you see the shadow of the rock is not very far away. The two streaks that you see there to the lower left were from Starlink satellites, which is this train of satellites going across the scene. And it was sort of amazing to watch. There are like a dozen or 2 dozen of them, all of them spaced very closely behind each other. And, the exposure was 8 seconds. And so it would actually catch each of these going 8 seconds along on its path, overlapping the path of the satellite in front of it. And, so it ended up creating those streaks, which I chose to not remove. In fact, these frames for the time lapse were processed by a program called Sequator, which does which I told to do a median filter, the equivalent of median, so that if there was something moving in the frames, ahead or behind, it would remove it. So airplanes got removed, but these satellites did not.
Very interesting. So what'd you have the lens set at? You say you were using the 10 to 22. Is this at 22?
No, it's at 10.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Another video too, I see.
Yeah, so I'll also make a comment that I was sort of disappointed that with this is a EOS RA, a fairly current model of the Canon cameras, and I I was disappointed that I could only get 8 seconds out of a 10-second interval, meaning that there's 2 seconds that is just processing overhead and writing to the memory card. And I had a really high speed memory card, so I don't think it was that. There's just that much overhead in terms of processing a frame. I don't know if anybody else has had that.
I have had that same experience on a different brand camera.
Yeah,
That's common. It's common.
I tried lots of different ways, but that's the best I could do was 8 seconds with a 10-second interval.
Wow. Okay, who's next?
I didn't know you could stack stuff in Photoshop. It's new to me. Videos.
Well, I'm pretty old school, Conrad.
Okay, that's fine. It's always good to hear what other people are doing.
A comment, please.
Yes.
I have found that I get the minimum gap in my star trails or by putting my camera in a continuous high-speed mode. But the time to write to the card is less than the time between shots. If you're taking a 10-second shot, it takes a couple seconds or less to write to the card, but it's taking the next shot while it's doing that. So I get the minimum gap by not using a time-lapse sort of or a feature, but actually using the high-speed mode and holding the shutter closed. Or shutter open, I should say.
Yeah, I've never tried that. Chris Sentness.
Yeah, I have to follow Thor, I guess. Those are amazing, Thor. So I've only shared one image. This is an image of the Rho Ophiuchi molecular cloud complex, just part of it. And I took this from Myrie Big Island State Park down in Albert Lea. And that was admittedly the first deep sky photo I've taken that hasn't been taken from my driveway in a very long time. So I was thrilled with how dark the sky was at just Portal 4. So
Nice.
Kind of got used to my Bortle 7.5 sky in Bloomington. So and with Albert Lea where it was and the park where it is, the light dome from Albert Lea is actually to the northwest of the park, which left the south sky very dark. So this area of the sky is down by Antares. So it's actually quite low in the sky. So being in southern Minnesota helped, and having a very dark southern sky helped. There aren't too many campsites in that state park to set up a telescope. There was only 2, and that was one of the weekends that it was extremely hot. So everybody wanted to be in the shade except for, Marie and I. We put the camper up in the site without any trees, and it worked great. The other thing about this that's I'd like to point out is I do all of my image capture and all of my processing entirely with open source software. So all of the capture is done with open source software, and then all of the stacking is done. And I use a Raspberry Pi to do the capture. And on that Raspberry Pi, I'm running CCD Seal and PhD2. Both are open source. And then to process it, I use a tool called Cyril. And that's a stacking software. And then I do further post-processing and raw therapy in GIMP. And this is only 2 hours of exposure time. So, and I quite like it. So I did another run of an area to the south of this in the sky around M4, and I haven't yet processed that. I took that down at Cherry Grove a couple weeks ago. So.
Are you going to add to it? Are you going to get some more data and add to it this summer?
I like this, and because of where it's at, I think the next time I get down to a dark sky where I could take pictures, it's probably going to be too far to the west already. So,
Yeah, I agree.
so it's if I were to add to it, I'd have to wait till next year, and by that point, I'll be on different things. So,
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
This is Phil Ramsey. Phil Ramsey, are you on?
Hey, so let's see. I'm a beginning astrophotographer. I've been at it for maybe a year about, and I'm using kind of what I have and what was given to me. I was very fortunate. Bob Kerr in the club gave me an AVX. He was looking to lighten his load, and I happened to be the first to respond. I was extremely lucky, and that kind of started my path to the dark side. I'd been doing some live stacking and so forth using my C8 that's probably 20 or so years old, and kind of a planetary camera that I purchased because it was relatively inexpensive and a focal reducer. And then when I got the AVX, I started kind of jumping in and got a cool camera. It's a ZWO 533, so it's a color one-shot camera. Sensor is about 11 millimeters by 11 millimeters. So it's pretty tiny compared to a full frame camera, but it's done well. I've been guiding. I use ZWO's ASA Air, which is a Raspberry Pi device that interfaces to an iPad interface. Puts out a Wi-Fi signal to an iPad, and you can do polar alignment with it. You can do the guiding, capture, all that stuff. I'm using the old version, not the new one. So I think I bought it used for $70 or something. Let's see, I've jumped into processing using PixInsight and kind of learning the basics. I think all of these were shot. Let's see, I don't know which ones you've included, but the three that I gave you anyway were all shot in April and all at CGO. And
so here's your next one.
Yeah, there's the next one. Yeah, so let's see. I submitted M42, Orion Nebula, M101, Pinwheel, and M51 Whirlpool. I don't know if you've included them all, but they were all shot the same month, all processed roughly the same. I guess M42 was a foray into HDR processing, so it had some 5-second shots, 30-second shots, 60-second shots blended. Most of the others are more long exposure, say 3-minute exposures or so, I think. I've been collecting a lot of data on M101 and M51 and making some forays into trying to process multiple nights into one shot. I think these are all one night.
This is yours too, I believe, right, Phil? Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Yep. So there's your M51.
Yep. And they're not the best. There's I know I've got some stars that are a little wonky shaped in the corners, and guiding's kind of a challenge. The scope is pretty big for the mount, and it's pretty heavy. If there's wind, it has a hard time guiding. It doesn't take very much wind to start blowing things around. But it's fun. It's really fun. You can see an awful lot in a photo, and it's fun to watch the stuff come in on an iPad. You kind of get the instant gratification of seeing a 3-minute shot come in, and it may not be all cleaned up and everything, but you can kind of see what you're getting and whether you're wasting your time or not. So yeah, it's been fun.
Hey Phil, is that live stacking then?
None of this is live stacking. This is just collected and the best frames.
Okay.
Yep.
I think
My
they have a
processing's
live
pretty.
stacking version, don't they? Don't they have a live?
They do have, yeah, they're the pro version, the newer version does have live stacking available. I don't have that particular model.
Okay.
All right. Next is Ken Hugel and a horse head.
Yeah, that's the horse head. Was taken in March down in Black Mesa, Oklahoma. It was actually the first picture that I processed in PixInsight. In fact, I even stacked it incorrectly because you can see there's still a satellite in the picture, which should have been subtracted if I would have stacked it properly. But this was taken with C11 Hyperstar. Real long exposures for a Hyperstar. I probably should have been shooting more like 30-second exposures or something, but these were 300-second exposures, 20 of them stacked.
I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, looks good.
Awesome. Did you have another one? Oh, Mike Shaw. Mike Shaw, are you on tonight? Mike Shaw's not on. But look at this picture. He's, you know, it's a typical Mike Shaw picture, I guess, in my opinion. Something cool, something happening in a still frame. And there he is. He's got the firefly in there, and actually the firefly is actually reflecting in that lake with the Milky Way.
That green stripe in there. I just
Or is that
happened
something
to-
else?
Yeah, that's something else. And I think it was his Facebook post or
Oh,
Instagram.
okay.
I can't remember. He said that was somebody fishing with a glow in the dark lure.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's even better than a firefly.
Yeah.
So there are the
Boundary
details
waters.
on his.
Boundary waters, yeah.
Okay, here is Vaults and your Cygnus.
All right, so this is my first test shot of my new wide field rig. And so my wide field rig is shown in the bottom. So what I did is I put my 50 millimeter f1.4 Sigma lens onto my QHY 22 camera with narrowband filter. So it's really, really challenging to get all that stack. The other challenge I had is focus is a real big challenge. So I can't autofocus with this system. So it's not a native Canon camera, obviously. So what I did is I developed my own focusing system. So it's a stepper-based focusing system. And I 3D printed some adapters and everything that actually focus the lens for me. So you see that big loop that loops around the lens. And there's a screw that is turned by a stepper motor that is in turn controlled by my focusing system that is interfacing with APT. So I use APT for my capture software. But this was down in Cherry Grove about a month ago, and a test shot of the Deneb area of Cygnus, and I think it turned out pretty well for that. And it was captured with narrowband, with O3 and with hydrogen alpha, and everything else is synthetically blended. So I think it turned out pretty good, but the field of view is very, very wide with this system. So I'm excited to do more with this system. So it's 14 by 11 degrees wide. So I think I can go super deep and super wide.
So how do you tell you're in focus?
So it's APT has some autofocus routines, and I was still debugging it. So basically you choose a star, and APT does various autofocus routines on that star, and it controls the stepper motor to control that. So what I didn't do is so there's two images on this out of this filter. So the hydrogen alpha filter was fairly well focused, but when it switched to the oxygen filter, I didn't expect it to be that far out of focus, so I didn't bother to refocus. And because normally when I use it on my Epsilon, it's not an issue because they are parfocal filters. But for this setup, it was a big issue, and I didn't realize that until after the fact. So what I'm doing is now writing scripts for APT to autofocus between every filter change.
Cool.
So my
this is
second
yours. Yeah.
second image, this was down also in Black Mesa back in March. So this is the Rosette Nebula. And this was not taken with that same setup, but this was taken with my Takahashi Epsilon 160. So also, but using the same camera as I did the other one. So there are 4 filters used in this image. There is a clear filter, a CLS filter, hydrogen alpha, oxygen, and sulfur, and it's all combined in PixInsight. And I've got it riding all on a Losmandy G11 mount, guided, and I think this one turned out pretty good.
That's amazing. Doug Neverman.
I'm here. This is obviously the Veil. It's actually a project that I've been working on for a year now. I decided a year and a half ago that I wanted to capture the Veil in narrowband, and the Veil is very, very large. It takes up a lot of space in the sky. So the only way that I can get it all is to take 9 different pictures and to combine them in a mosaic, to stitch them together in a mosaic, which is it's a little difficult because you get variations in pictures of the background from one to another. So to make them match, make them linearly fit to each other is sometimes a challenge. I'm in this particular picture, I'm missing one panel 1 and panel 9 just because I couldn't get enough. Like I say, I've been working on this, trying to get pictures for a year. I got lots of pictures, but not lots of pictures that I'm willing to accept. I have quality measures on the pixels or on the pictures images so that if I'm going to spend this much time, I want good pictures to start with and hopefully get something amazing out of it. This is only the H alpha pictures that I had taken. The quality measures that I use PixInsight, and it measures the full width half maximum. It measures eccentricity, which tells me how good my tracking is doing, and also signal to noise ratio, and trying to get those numbers as good as I can get. And it's been an interesting exercise in that last year I was taking pictures and my efficiency of the number of pictures that I would be able to get out of a particular night was not very good. And so I had to sit back and look at my processes in my when I take pictures, and also when and the equipment that I had to see if I could figure out what was going wrong. And so now this year, my efficiency for the number of pictures I get is much, much better. I've been taking pictures at various locations, as you can see. The North Shore is actually up near Split Rock Lighthouse, just short of it, at a cabin that we stay up there every year. It happens to be during NNSF, so I don't get to that, except this year. My wife and her twin sister are going to Hawaii, so we decided not to go up there. And so I am planning to go to NNSF this year for the first time. I think that's it for this particular picture. This is M51, and I took this down at CGO, and this was done on the imaging system. down there. So the Takahashi FSQ 130ED and the camera that they're using, SkyX LTI, which is a really, really easy program to use. This is, these are 5-minute shots. These are unguided shots on that system. So it's the alignment on that MV2 mount is dialed in pretty good. When I did this, I did a little bit of reading up on M51, and there was an interesting article that the magnetic fields, which in these kinds of galaxies, these spiral galaxies, kind of line up with the arms. But this one is a bit of exception as you get towards the edges. So the magnetic fields are lined up until, and at the edges, all of a sudden they go a little bit haywire, and don't line up as they would expect on other galaxies. There's been some conjecture as to why those don't line up, and they measure those using far infrared cameras. But it was interesting to read up about that. I don't know if those are the two I had. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Nope.
Don Gadzik, are you on?
I am. I'm sitting here eating dessert, though. I had to put it down real fast.
Sorry.
So, I mean, I don't do much for astrophotography. I'm just kind of dabbling with things, but I do like doing star trails, partly because I'm a visual observer, and so I can set up the camera on a tripod with the intervalometer going, taking pictures to do star trails, and then go to my telescope and observe all night. And when I'm next day or whatever, I can go home and put together a picture and make a picture from the night as well. So this was taken up by Mille Lacs Wildlife Management Area. It's about 3 hours worth of star trails pointing north, obviously, with the tree there in the foreground. I thought this one was interesting because it's got the satellite passes in there, and by going back and looking at the time of the pictures, when the pictures were taken, I was able to identify the 4 passes on there, and it's 2 passes of ISS, and it's 2 passes of one of the Starlink trains. They had just launched a couple of days earlier, and it's hard. You know, ISS is pretty well known when it's going to go over, so you can go back. There's a website I found. I can't find it again now. I have to figure that out. But where I could go back historically and find out when the previous passes was and where ISS was previously, to be able to nail down the ISS ones. But the one Starlink train I had seen go by, and so I knew what that one was, and this one was about the right timing and everything. So I expect that other one is a Starlink trail. But yeah, this is just basic camera with basic, it's a good camera with a basic lens on there, sitting on a really cheap tripod using the built-in intervalometer and that free StarTrails.de software that's available on the internet.
Very good, Don. I love star trails. Good job. This is Suresh. Suresh, if you're on.
Hi, everybody. Hello from Chicago. I'm out of town this week. Wow, we've had some really nice pictures. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I'm just following a whole bunch of stuff. So my stuff is, I think, relatively mundane compared to some of the stuff we've seen. Just to start off, to give a little context of the way I've been doing my imaging so far, I'm in my 3rd season of doing it. I started at Black Mesa in 2019, and I've kind of been on a 5-year mission, as it were, just like Star Trek. My first year, I used my Skywatcher 120 refractor primarily on my CGX mount, and I shot with a Nikon D7200 camera, which is a fairly basic DSLR. And then last year during COVID, I actually upgraded to a D810A Nikon DSLR, which is specific for astronomical purposes. I can't remember if it does not have an IR cut filter or if it modifies it, but it goes more into the red than the standard DSLR, which is really cool for what we do. And I also moved up from my refractor to my Malicam 10-inch RC with Astrophysics CCD-T67 reducer. So I shoot more or less at about f5.6, which is a big help. So I've been doing that for most of with this exact setup for most of the past season and a half. And I'm just now starting to move back to the refractor and move into narrowband and LRGB imaging. So that I'm kind of on this progression, and that kind of helps, I think, to speak to some the way some of my pictures look and how I've been progressing. So I'm not sure which pictures you guys selected, so I'll just follow along these slides. This is the Embryo Nebula, and this is, if I remember right, in Perseus. I shot this last fall from LCC, 78 minutes. I still shoot 3-minute subs. I haven't gone longer. With my heavier 10-inch RC on my CGX mount, I'm getting up near the limit. So I don't really trust going longer with my guiding, but I think I can, I just don't. And so everything I shoot here is essentially 3-minute subs. So it's 78 minutes. I think that is, if I'm doing my math right, 26, 3-minute subs get you 78 minutes. So this is the Embryo Nebula. It's a I believe this is a emission nebula. And I'm not really sure what else to say about it, except to say that you can see some of the little red pockets in there. And that's what my DSLR picks up that a lot of other DSLRs do not, since it's sensitized more into the red. What is the next picture? Oh, Omega Centauri. So this was shot from Black Mesa in March. And this was 72 minutes. This is the only image that I have that I used frames from multiple nights. So I didn't get enough the first night. And so I added a second night, was able to mix them or blend them fine. So I might end up doing that more often now. So I wasn't sure which one to submit here. I actually have a video of it rising, moving, and then setting that I was about to share, but I couldn't figure out how to get that to Ahmed. So I sent this. So most people know what Omega Centauri is. It's an open cluster with I think about 10 million stars, I think, if I'm doing that right. So to see this naked eye, I know a lot of you guys have not seen this because it's a southern object. It's an amazing sight. So this thing covers almost a full degree inside, so almost twice the size of the full moon. And it's an easy naked eye object. So we got this from the Panhandle of Oklahoma. So you don't have to go too much further south to see this. So you get a chance, it's really worth the effort. And what's the last one? The Sator region. So this is in Cygnus. And I'm trying to remember how long my exposure was on this, 114 minutes. So Doug Neverman's been telling me that I need to get closer to 2 hours. So I've been creeping up that way ever since. So this is one of the longer ones that I have. This is almost 2 hours. I think this is 58 individual frames. Am I doing that right now? 38, I think that's right. 38 individual 3-minute frames. The Sator region is really amazing. For somebody like Baltz, who has that wide angle setup now, this is definitely in region to shoot for him. I think this is also called the Butterfly. Is that Gamma Cygni, I think, on the right there? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But all these images are all the same exact setup. I have a suite of software which probably nobody else uses. I use Stellarium to run my mount and scope, Astro Tortilla to do plate solving, Backyard Nikon to control my DSLR, PHD2 for guiding, and my CGX. I use a very slow Dell laptop that Doug picks on me for, and a reducer, and of course my DA10A. I have SkyX, but this works so well for me that I haven't had really a need to graduate it to SkyX, but it's something I'd like to do. And then this image is the Sculptor Galaxy, also called the Silver Dollar Galaxy. This is AGC 253 in Sculptor. And truly, if this was further north, this would be a messy object. This thing is fantastic to look at visually and to image. I was surprised I got this much detail with my DSLR. Remember, these are uncooled images, so I thought I'd get a lot of noise. It's further south, and somehow from Cherry Grove, the results are reasonable. 78 minutes integrated, so 26 frames at 3 minutes each. The exact same setup for all these as I've discussed. And this is a target that, regardless of the size telescope you have, either visually or for imaging, you should definitely try this object because you can see all the modeling in there. This is a spiral galaxy that we're seeing, and I think it's a 26-degree angle, if I remember that right. So it's a really good angle to see within the galaxy, as you can see here.
Why do you need 120 minutes to make a better image? That was a great image of Cygnus.
Doug, you want to answer that one? The way Doug's explained it to me is 120 minutes is like a magical point, particularly with nebulae, where you start to pull out more detail around the 2-hour mark. But if Doug's still on, he can fill us in.
Yeah, I'm still on, and I can talk to that a little bit. I have heard that there's something magical happens when you get around an hour and a half data, so or more, and so I always try to get as much data as you can. Now, what you're doing when you're taking lots of pictures is you take lots of pictures not because the objects are dim, but that because there is lots of noise in the signal that reaches the camera, and it's noise from space. So when you get to these images that are very, very close in, or very, very, like this, which is fills up your frame. You want to take lots of data so that you can the noise that appears in the shots are statistical in nature and follow a Poisson distribution. So the bad news is there's noise. The good news is that since it's a Poisson distribution, which is similar to a Gaussian distribution, when you average all of the values that you get for a particular pixel, it will average out that noise. Now, how much you have to take to get a better signal is going to depend upon your light conditions, any light pollution. The moon adds in lots of noise on these objects or in your pictures. So the rule has always been, if you can get more data, then you have a better estimate of what the actual signal from that particular point in the sky.
Yeah, I was just sort of questioning why would 120 minutes be a magic number when 60 minutes is half of that and 240 minutes is twice that.
Yeah, it's really going to depend upon your sky conditions. And so it's going to depend upon seeing and transparency and light pollution. But for me, I always usually plan, well, with the Veil project I'm working on, it doesn't really matter. But actually, what I'm trying to do is to get an hour of data on each panel on each filter. Yeah, so it's just that the more you get, the better off you are. As an example, if the moon is up, what I have heard is that to get the same estimate of any one pixel, you have to take 10 times as much data as you would if the moon was not up.
Because of the background illumination.
Yes, it just throws lots of light into the sky, and that comes into your camera and just it messes with it. Basically, what happens is the standard deviation on the Poisson distribution gets bigger.
Well, whatever it is, these are beautiful, Suresh.
Thanks. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of on this 5-year plan, as it were. And so I will just tell you, just in my personal recommendation, because I'm now starting to move into cooled cameras, filter wheels, and the like. I have a ball when I use my DSLR and my standard one-shot color DSLR with my RC. I don't have any of those technical issues that I have when I move over to the cooled stuff and the filter wheels and the like. So my recommendation is, if you're starting out in imaging, start with the DSLR. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to jump on me immediately and say, no, go cool camera. But it's a lot easier of a setup, and you can get pretty reasonable results with it, I think.
And I'm going to take this opportunity to plug the astrophotography workshop again on in August, because Mike Shaw will be there, and our primary focus for this particular workshop was with people with DSLRs. So if you're available, sign up and come out and learn what Mike has to offer, which is a lot.
Mike is amazing.
Hey, Doug, I was disappointed that I thought you were going to plug the imaging rig at CGO, that if you're interested in even sticking your toe into this thing, that rig sits most of the time, and all you need to do is get trained on using the rig and probably just locking up and closing the door after you're all done and turning out the lights and putting everything away.
Actually, Mark and I worked with a couple of guys who this past late winter and then into spring wanted to get into astrophotography, and so we said, don't go buy equipment, go down to the imaging rig and use it and get started there. You'll need to figure out how to process it, and we suggested using PixInsight, but as Mr. Setness said, you can do it with open software too. But yeah, it's a great place to get started. If in the Takahashi interface to get those pictures is really, really easy.
Right. You master that, then the plane wave is sitting right there, and you can go after some of the smaller nebulas, the Ring Nebula and the Dumbbell and things like that. Those are right there for the taking, and that plane wave scope is certainly a star sitting there waiting for somebody to use it. Get it? Is a pun there? Star. So that's all we have for this week, this month. Thank you all, imagers. Thank you. I totally agree with what Thor said. This is a great collection of images, and a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of equipment and a lot of frustration. I know for myself, speaking for myself, that has happened. So that's all we got this month. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in August. Stay safe. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day.
And a quick thank you to Ahmad, who basically put all of that presentation together.
Well, absolutely. Ahmed did a fantastic job, as always. Good night, everyone.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thanks to everybody who sent a picture. And hopefully we'll do this again next year.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.